Hi everyone, Oscar here with Samy's camera, and if you're ready to stop guessing with your camera settings and start creating images with purpose, then you need to understand the exposure triangle and how it works. Today, I'll break it down in a simple way that hopefully makes sense and shows you how each setting affects your final image, so you can start shooting with intent and confidence. Let's get started. The exposure triangle is made up of three settings that control how your image is exposed: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Each one affects the amount of light that hits your camera sensor, but they can also change the look and feel of your images. First up, let's talk about aperture. Aperture is the size of the opening in your lens, and in photography, it's measured in f-stops. In simple terms, the lower the number, the wider the opening. So f1.4 is a wide aperture, whereas f16 is a small one. Now, wider apertures let in more light, and they also give you that beautiful blurry background known as shallow depth of field or bokeh. This can be used to draw out a subject from a not so pleasant background. A narrow aperture will limit the amount of light hitting your sensor, but will also expand the range of focus in your image, bringing more of the background elements into focus. Next is shutter speed. Now, this controls how long your camera sensor is exposed to light. A fast shutter speed, like 1/1000th of a second, freezes action, where slower speeds like 1/60th or even 1 second let in more light but also blur motion. Now, motion blur is caused by having too slow of a shutter speed or handheld shooting. The typical rule of thumb is to keep the shutter speed above 1/60th of a second if you're shooting handheld. Now, some cameras are equipped with in-body image stabilization, and this can aid you in shooting handheld at slow shutter speeds. But this is also where a good tripod can help if your camera doesn't have these features and the shot allows for it. If you want to photograph a waterfall or body of water and make it look dreamy and soft, then you want to use a slow shutter speed like 15 seconds. If you want to freeze a subject in motion, use a fast one like 1/1000th of a second. And what's great is that these are all settings that you can have dialed into your camera if you know what you're going to be shooting before you get on location. And once you get there, they're very easy to adjust. And finally, we have ISO. The ISO is your sensor sensitivity to light. So lower numbers like ISO 100 are great for bright daylight, where higher numbers like ISO 3200 or 6400 can help you shoot in low light and in the dark. But they also introduce grain or noise into your image, so only raise it when you need to. Now, pro tip would be to set up a low light shoot and run through the ISO stages in your camera to find the limitations of your sensor. In fact, you can do this for all three parameters, and you can see what is adjusting in the image when you change those settings. So let's tie it all together. When shooting manually, the real power of the exposure triangle is knowing what to prioritize. You want to ask yourself, is depth of field the most important thing? Then you'll obviously want to start on aperture, or do you need to freeze or perhaps show motion? You want to start with shutter speed. You need more brightness but can't adjust the aperture or the shutter? Then that's when ISO comes in. And just know that one setting doesn't fit all, so each time your starting point changes based on your creative goal and the available light. Learning the exposure triangle takes practice, but it's definitely worth it, and it gives you full creative control over your photography. But remember, you always want to start your image with intent, so make sure to set up your aperture and shutter speed first, and then make your final settings for ISO. So I hope this gives you a basic understanding of your camera's exposure tools, and my advice would be to set your camera to manual mode, step out into your garden or local park to practice shooting with different settings, so when the great shot comes your way in the field, you'll know how to expose it properly. Now, if you want more hands-on training, check out the upcoming classes and workshops at samysphotoSchool.com. See you in the next one.